Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode number 2 of the Flyers edition of Inquirer Live at Gameday Central. My name is Jackie Spiegel, and our guest today is Flyers Director of Player Development, Riley Armstrong, joining us to break down the organization's prospects and pipeline. Thank you for joining us, Riley.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Before we get to the prospects, for fans and viewers who maybe don't know exactly what your role is, what exactly does a director of player development do?
I think you wear quite a bit of hats. You obviously manage a lot of prospects, players, some staff members as well, and kind of have your hands in all different sorts of pots around the organization and stuff like that. I think the biggest thing that we do is once a player is drafted, having us kind of build that relationship between the player and the Flyers. And then so we go out, we'll visit the player, take him out for a dinner or a lunch, get to know him a little bit more, so that when they do decide to turn pro, they're very comfortable with how we run things. They're comfortable with seeing us around the rink. And whenever a player feels comfortable in the situation or their environment that they're in, it allows them to play better. So that's a lot of stuff we work on. I think there's a couple areas of development that we focus on. I think a lot of people think, they just do like skill development. They're just on the ice. And I think the biggest part of the development is how they grow up and mature away from the rink. And that's, being able to walk into an NHL locker room, how they handle money, although, we're not financial advisors by any means, but kind of trying to guide them down the right way, the right path of necessarily not buying $90,000 car with your signing bonus check, doing things that can set them up for their life and the long path, or seeing the big picture ahead of them. I think the biggest part too is also finding like apartments, whether they move to Philly or to Allentown, helping them adjust and kind of settle into their new home that doesn't have a billet mom or dad there to cook them dinner at night or have all this stuff ready. And there's a lot of growing up that has to be done, and when your life is good away from the rink, it allows you to be able to perform and play better when you're at the rink. So we do a lot of that. Sam Moran, Chris Stewart, Patrick Sharp, John LeClaire. We're on the road quite a bit. We're in Philly with the Flyers throughout the year, and then we're in Lehigh with the Phantoms, and then I even take trips over to Reading and hang out with the Royals and some guys down there as well to, feed all three teams.
So it's a lot.
It is a lot. It is. It is. So, and I think, going from coaching into this coaching, you're more involved in the day-to-day, I would say, like with the team. But when you go over a forecheck and you go over how a team breaks out and things like that, you're kind of doing the same thing each day or each game.
Right.
With this, there's an issue with one player. That same issue isn't going to be the same thing with the next player that calls, or talking to a different player. So it's just a variety of stuff. The hamster's definitely going upstairs in my brain 24/7. So it keeps me on my toes.
Well, how do you balance that with, you talked, it's a lot of conversations. It's a lot of, how do you balance maybe the conversations with the skill work? Because there is still some skill work involved with your role, correct?
Yes. Yep. So we're on the ice whenever we can. If we even travel out to see a player, a lot of the college teams or junior teams allow us to pop it on the ice during their practices. It's kind of whatever the coach allows or wants. And we work on certain things that we feel that the player needs as an individual, but also what the player needs to be a Flyer. And we're not going in there to say, hey, your coach is wrong, this is how you do it. He's still playing for that coach, and that coach dictates his ice time. So we're just trying to help and build, and within the structure that he plays in, but also within that of getting him ready to take the next steps of moving up to pro hockey. And we're always in contact with coaches of all these teams, talking to them, so we're all on the same page. Whether it's me talking to the player or the coach, we always have the same message, so the player's getting the correct info whenever it's needed.
I mean, that is a lot of balance, and it's a lot of trust with the other coaching staffs and everything. I mean, how much do you have to like kind of balance that, saying, hey, we need you to do this, and then like you said, the coach could say this, but it's making sure that you're all on the same message, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of time on the phone. and it's like building the relationship with the player is one thing, but then throughout the course of making trips to see players, you start to build those relationships with the coaching staff of those teams. And it's so fun to go to some teams and they bring you down the locker room and you're just kind of sitting in there hanging out with the guys. And they bring you in after the game and you're just down there hanging out, being a hockey guy, talking hockey. I don't think there's anything better than that. And then I think when the player sees that, I think the player is very welcoming to a lot of stuff too, because he sees the relationship that the development staff has with that coaching staff. And, when a player can pick that out really quick, if he sees a disconnect between groups or different staffs, they can pick it out pretty quick. So when they see that it's a good working line of communication there, it's really easy for the player to buy in.
You do travel around. I mean, I remember at development camp, you mentioned how you go to Notre Dame and you see the cool gold helmets that they wear and everything. And it's a lot of travel. Do you kind of veer into a little bit of the amateur scouting side then too? Because you're going to see these guys. You're obviously going to be watching the games. You're going to see maybe potential, prospects, a potential draft pick. I mean, do you kind of offer your opinion on guys sometimes when you see, like, for example, I'm sure you saw Carson Dorwart skate, and then he signed obviously at the end of last year. So it means I'm sure you saw Shane Sagi before he obviously was drafted in June. Do you kind of, add a little to that too, a little of the amateur scouting?
I think whenever we go to see a guy, if the player stands out or we know he's in the top 60 of prospects kind of area, we'll write a little report on that player. But I also think our amateur scouts do a great job. Talk about traveling. Those guys are on the road pretty much the whole entire time during the hockey season. And even right now with the World Junior Showcase going on in Minnesota. So, they're constantly out there. And I think the best part of the way that the Flyers operate is everyone is working together, but everybody trusts within the organization on who's doing their job and allows them to do their job as well. And that starts with Jonesy and Danny kind of leading the ship in that way. But I think Brent Flahr does an awesome job with all the amateur stuff, keeping the scouts going. And I feel in the last couple of years, we've had some really good drafts. But it's always good to go out, see those players, and then we draft Shane. And it's like, oh yeah, I liked him, and you kind of already know, okay, we're going to work on this or we're going to work on that. And it kind of just gets the ball rolling right at the start of development camp where you can kind of start talking to him about his game. So it's always good to have an eye on guys. And I have a lot of hockey players up here in my head. So,
and we'll get to Shane, one of your, is it fair to say favorites from development camp?
Yeah.
Max Truck. We'll discuss him in a little bit too. But I mean, is this, you were with Lehigh as a coach. Do you kind of look at this as like an extension of that a little bit? Like you talked a little bit about it, but is this really like the next step after being a coach is to kind of work in this role?
I think it kind of depends on where you want to go within the career. I do feel that if you want to be a coach, you continue to coach. And I think the player development kind of shifts into a little bit of a management role as well. We are an extension of the coaching staff, whether that's NHL, American League, or the ECHL. We try and help bring kids along and develop, and you never know who's going to hit or pan out or make the jump at any given time. So it's important to touch all those teams. But at the same time, you also shift into the management and you start to see the scouting side. You start to see how pieces are put together, how the salary cap starts to work. And different things like that. So I'm kind of doing this role. You're in the best of both worlds when it comes to the being a part of the Flyers.
Well, that's a perfect segue because obviously there's been some chatter about you and your maybe next steps kind of thing, being a GM. I mean, is that something you're interested in?
Yeah, I think that's where when I looked at myself, number one as like a coach, you look at all the coaches, right? You coach 3, 4, maybe 5 years in one spot, and then you're pretty much hired to be fired, and you move on to the next team, and if there is or whatever the path is. But I felt on the management side, you have a little bit longer life when it comes to being with one team, and I personally felt at the time of making the decision to switch into the development side was everyone who's involved with the Flyers. They've helped me since joining Lehigh as a coach, and it's awesome to go to the rink each day and be able to pick their brain, learn from them, talk to them, continue to grow and develop myself into the next role that if it ever comes my way. But I'd definitely love to be a GM one day and kind of see what happens. But I definitely love working for the Flyers and being a part of this.
Well, you mentioned a little bit about Lehigh, and John Snowden is now the head coach there, and you have a little bit of a history with him. I went to his introductory press conference, and I have to say, you kind of get this, like, you want to run through a wall for this guy kind of, feeling when you hear him speak. What is your relationship now with him? Obviously, you have a previous relationship dealing in the ECHL and AHL, but what is your relationship now with him, and how do you work as a player development guy, director of player development, and now someone who's the head coach of Lehigh Valley?
Yeah, I just think I think we both see the game the same way, the way that we want to make these players play. And I also think the other thing that John's really good at is the way that he delivers a message to the team. Like you said, I think it's pretty easy to buy into what he's selling. And a coach has to be a good salesman when it comes down to it. They got to have the players want to play for them and do kind of the system or structure, whatever he wants to do. They got to buy in and kind of develop that area. For us, we're as the extension of the coaching staff. We just want to be there. Whatever we can do to help in practice, bring guys out on the ice early, keep working with guys kind of further along their development. There's so much ice before practice and after practice where, we can get puck touches in with those players and continue to grow their game, whether it's, doing one-timers on a power play or how they pick up puck up off the wall coming out of the D zone. So even when practice is over, we just like to stay out there, whatever we can do to help that coaching staff, that they can go in and maybe prepare for a road trip or prepare for a game. And, that's where we come in and we can help John and his staff kind of take the reins a little bit and work on some other things that make that player better.
I mean, there's been a lot of talk, and this will be probably the last question. We'll chat about your role and how how everything functions. But I remember Snowden specifically saying that this year he's already talked to Rick Tocchet, and there's already the conversations about playing similar systems, especially in the defensive zone with Lehigh and the Flyers, playing the same way. And we saw that the last 2 years, at least since I started on the beat, that there wasn't that really connection with Lehigh and the Flyers. How important is it for not just the players, but for your role to have guys play similar systems between the NHL and the AHL?
Yeah, I just think it makes it a lot easier, when a player's called up or when a player gets sent down, and they can just flow right into that team and they don't have to be like, okay, so where does he want me? Okay, I was doing this and with the Phantoms, and now I'm going to do this with the Flyers. And it makes the transition much easier. I think when it comes down to it, though, is when a player's comfortable and they walk into that Flyers locker room after being called up, and maybe it's their first call up and they're fired up or they're nervous or they didn't even sleep last night. At least they can go in and they know all the details that John's already put into them with the Phantoms, and they're just going to go and play their game. They just have to go play hockey. It takes the thinking out of it. I think when you when you start to think so much, it slows your game down.
Right.
So when a player can just go play a little bit more free, it'll, hopefully it allows them to have a great first game, and it gets them a second game and a third game. And, before you know it, hopefully the player's not even back with the Phantoms, and he's a mainstay on the Flyers.
He kind of mentioned that, how important it is to have that, because guys don't want to play just one NHL game. They want to be there consecutively and continuously. One guy, though, so we'll get into the prospects now, but one guy who probably won't be in Lehigh Valley, but is a prospect, is Alex Bump. And you've been very high on Alex Bump since the beginning. You're on the bump train. We're calling it the bump train. You're on the bump train.
Yeah.
Do you project him to, kind of be that guy this year? Do you see him taking those steps? And, there's a lot of conversation among fans that, he's a fifth round pick. But you and I both know if you ask Alex, he is not a fifth round pick. And I think he's shown that. But how do you view his trajectory right now?
Yeah, I think the funny thing with being drafted, whether it's the first round or the seventh round, there's some kids, players that feel, I'm a first round, and they stop working. They stop doing the extra things in the gym because they think it's just going to be handed to them. Something that Alex has done when I went in the fifth round was he had a chip on his shoulder, and he's continued to put the work in and make huge strides every off season, that when he enters the season, you can see you just want to more people just keep jumping on the train because they see how the strides that he's taken, they're just not little strides, they're big strides.
Right.
And I think that's where this summer right now, based off of him coming in at the end of last year, playing in the playoffs, which I think was a very long season for him after winning a national championship and then coming here and playing in a couple of games, getting to the playoffs, playing that. I think part of him was probably I wish I was back at Western Michigan hanging out with my buddies a little bit. I think it kind of dragged on for him. There was a lot of stress and stuff like that through all those little tournaments and playoffs that he was doing there. So I do think he got a little bit tired in the Hershey series, but at the same time that you could see areas that he needed to get stronger at. And this summer, I know Alex, and I know that he's putting the work in. So I would never say, yeah, I think he's going to make the Flyers, but it's going to come down to what type of training camp he has. And I definitely know he's a confident kid. We talk a lot, and I obviously want him to make the team. I want a lot of guys to make the team, but there's a lot of jobs to be earned, put it that way.
I mean, it's fair to say though that, his trajectory is very high. He's not, the fifth round thing that's just when I think, Brent Flair said it a lot. That's just where guys are picked, and it's what you do after.
Yeah.
And did it say a lot of maturity about him that he decided to go to the AHL after the season? And I don't think he didn't burn a year. He signed an ATO to do it. Did that say a lot about his maturity then? Yeah,
I think if you look at Alex's path, playing high school hockey and really taking his time, not being, taking two jumps. He just took one step. And so he goes from high school hockey to the USHL. He just didn't go high school hockey to college hockey.
Right.
He took all the proper steps within his path to go. And I felt that the step that he took of just playing in the American League, it allowed him to adjust to be okay, now I know what I need to do to play pro hockey. And then I think that just allows him to be even better. If he jumps right to the NHL and he plays one game and that game didn't go well, then it's where's his mindset at? Right now, he's in a great mindset going into training camp. And I think it's going to set him up for success when you look at the big picture.
Well, you talk a little bit about him, and maybe this is more of a general question, not just Alex Bump related, but since we're talking about him, you talk about the things he needs to do during the summer. Is that gym? Is that on the ice? Is that maybe sports psychology? What exactly, when you guys always say he needs to have a big summer, what do you think how would you describe that to someone?
I think that's the gym. I think a lot of guys like to go and skate. And when you come out of college hockey, or you come out of junior hockey, and then all of a sudden you're playing against a 27-year-old man or a 28-year-old man, and you go into the corner against them. There's a little bit different strength compared to the 22-year-old. And I think that's kind of like the eye opener. I wouldn't say it's necessarily, you got to go get to a certain number of your weight. Like I'm at 190 and I need to get to 200. It's just getting, like you'd want to say like a little bit more like man strength as you get older. And I think that's where Alex comes in, and it's like all in his legs and his core of developing that area, which makes you stronger in battles, stronger on your skates, a more powerful and efficient skater. So all that stuff starts to come as you develop those muscles. And that's where the gym comes in. And I think a lot of guys want to go out on the ice, practice their one timer, or how they shoot the puck, or this. And sometimes the best work that you do is in the gym, and it sometimes gets overlooked by a lot of people.
Well, one guy who's also, he had a little bit of NHL experience last year was Luchanko. He doesn't even turn 19 until the end of, he's still 18. Like you don't even think about it. But where do you see his game right now? What are maybe his next steps? And as he's kind of in a little bit of a no man's land, I think it's fair to say, right?
Yeah. I think for him, he's like the guy who goes out on the ice, and he's a man of few words, number one. But when he goes out, he kind of lets his play just do the talking from that standpoint. He's very smart. His hockey IQ, his playmaking ability, I think, is through the roof. You see him skating. He floats on the ice, two or three strides. He's at max speed. And I think the one thing that's going to separate him is once he finds that scoring touch and getting a few different habits of where to shoot the puck or how to beat an NHL goalie. I think that's going to take his game to the next level. And that's something that he's aware of. And we talked to him about that, but all the other things that he is doing is what makes him such a great hockey player. And again, he's still so young that when you go and watch him play, I don't think a lot of people are like, oh, this kid's 18 years old.
Right.
Because he has a good framework about him. His maturity level on and off the ice is way beyond his years. I think there's just going to take some time. You got to be patient with a guy like that. And I also think playing center in the NHL is a very hard position. You're up and down the rink. You have a lot of responsibilities when it comes to that. And, I think over time he's going to become, hopefully a top six centerman.
It seems like with your role, there's a lot of balance, right? Like the balance between what the Flyers won and what the NCAA coaches won. And with Luchanko, it seems like there's this balance between, and you and I talked about it when we were in Lehigh in April, and I talked with, former Phantoms coach Ian LaPerriere about it too. Like with Luchanko, there's this balance between, he does have that high hockey IQ and his passing is elite, and he's very much a setup guy, but you want him to shoot more. So How do you balance not wanting to have him overthink it, maybe right? To always be the shooter now, but keep that I compared him to an Adam Oates, which shows my age, but I think he's, he has that such a high passing IQ. How do you balance the two between maintaining that, but also saying, hey buddy, we need you to shoot a little bit more here?
Yeah, I think as he gets more confident in his shooting and he feels that, I can beat a goalie from this area of the ice, or this move works and I can do this. I think as you move up in hockey, there's more scouting, pre-scouts that teams do into a player, or, how a goalie moves, or where to beat a goalie more, and after a while that he's playing, D-man from other teams, goalies from other teams they'll know, he's going to pass.
Right.
And it's always good to be that dual threat, that it keeps that D-man, it keeps goalies kind of guessing, he might shoot though. And so now maybe it holds him and then he passes it. And then the next time he comes down, he shoots it. And that's where you get people start to think more of what is Jet going to do. And I think once he understands that and develops that part of his game, and I think it's mostly confidence and finding that rhythm. And I think for him, he hasn't scored in the pro game yet. He has points. He sets tons of guys up. Yeah. But I think once he gets one and he gets that confidence, I think they're going to open up, kind of like a Tyson Forster type player. Once he got one, the floodgates opened and, he started putting them all back of the net. So I think it comes down to a lot of that.
Oh yeah. Luchanko had 2 ridiculous passes that I saw when I was in Lehigh Valley that were just very elite, like, to put it mildly. So yeah. It seems like you're going to be pretty busy developing guys who are in college hockey this year. Porter Martone, and also like all at the same schools. Like you have 3 BU guys, 2 Michigan State guys, and I mean with Porter Martone, he obviously chose the NCAA route. What was maybe the process? How involved were the Flyers in that process of him picking not just Michigan State but the NCAA route?
Yeah, I think it all depended on what Porter and his agent and his family wanted to do. I've said a couple of times, I thought it was very mature of his decision. I think a lot of kids want to go and try and make the NHL team and sign their contract and put money in the bank and, do all that. And I felt that I read a couple of the articles that he did as well. And looking at the stuff that he was saying about, where is he going to be at in 5 years and how this is going to affect him 5 years from now when the Flyers are in contention for a Stanley Cup and stuff like that. So I think it was a great decision on his side. Again, I text with him and talk to him quite a bit since making that call. And, we're always going to be at his games and working with them and helping them. And it makes it pretty easy when Shane's there as well. And I think I already have a date, October 17th, 18th weekend, BU against Michigan State. And then we have Rahunen at Harvard. So that's 6 guys in Boston right there on a weekend. So I'm pretty sure we'll get a lot of our visits in and up pretty high there. Well, the whole staff will be there from the development side.
It definitely makes it easy with all those guys are playing, and I guess, does it help? You talk a little bit about how the development role isn't just the skill side. It's getting him acclimated to things, getting, the right mindset. I mean, does it make it easier because Shane was there already? Do you think that played a role in having someone who obviously they met at development camp, they were drafted, at the draft together, Does that help to have someone, not just for you because you have 2 people at the same school, makes it a little easier, but does it help do you think that helped Porter kind of say, hey, I got a buddy already here, kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I never really asked him, like why Michigan State. I think he probably could have had the pick of his litter on what school he wanted to go to. I do think being, where he's from in Ontario and, it's fairly close to home, just over the border there. I think it makes a lot of sense for his family and stuff like that to be able to go watch him play. And, I think his family's great. I think it's so cool how close they are, and they all want to be a part of the process of him and meeting them all at the draft. It's been pretty cool again to know the whole Martone family.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what classes maybe he'll be taking. He wasn't planning on going to college and taking classes when he was at development camp necessarily, but obviously, we talk a little bit about Shane Van Sagi and he just exudes Flyers. Like he just has this like bravado about him that just is very Flyers organization kind of mindset. And what was it like kind of dealing with him? What did you see from him at development camp? And have you recovered from the hit that you took from him?
I've recovered. I'm still pretty young, so I'm good to go. But no, I think his style of play is just a north-south style of play. He's straight line player. His big frame, likes to get on the body, likes to protect pucks. I've been watching him at the World Junior Showcase right now, just watching him on TV and stuff. Had a goal the other day, and he continues to play pretty well out there. I think it is a tough little tournament they're playing in right now. It's like July and, it's middle of summer, and I don't think they're really gearing up to go play games, but it's pretty cool to kind of see them play best on best at that age group right now. But he's looking good out there, and you can tell once he gets his feet moving and he's on the body, there's a lot of ice that opens up for him and his line mates. So I think, that's the type of player that the Flyers want or need when it comes down to it, probably, in a couple of years, however long his path is that it takes to make his next steps.
I mean, obviously he was at Michigan State last year. Porter goes this year. And part of Porter being able to do it is that change in the rule, right? With the CHL and the NCAA, where CHL players can now leave CHL and go play in the NCAA. How does that change your role, I guess, for development when you have guys who can make that shift?
I think it comes down to more of with Danny and talking with the agents and the player and the families when it comes down to making that type of decision. I'm always going to go wherever the player is. So for me, it's a no-brainer. But I think when they come down, they look at the big picture, and they're really breaking down, where they can go, and not necessarily signing right after the draft, and keeping that window open, keeping that option open, that you're not just going to close that down. I think in Porter's case, whatever amount of points he put up last year, like close to 150 games or something like that.
Right.
What else, was he going to do at the junior level? So I think this is like a great stepping stone in his development path of being able to go and play against 24-year-olds, 23-year-olds, guys that are stronger. I also think it allows him to be more time in the gym that we talked about earlier. He gets that gym time in where they only play on the weekends, compared to junior hockey where they're, they might play on a Tuesday and a Thursday and then a Saturday, and the gym time isn't really that available to a guy that's, still developing his body as well. So I think the rule change is awesome. I think it's great for players. And we'll kind of see where it goes. I think there's a lot of things they're still figuring out, league to league, and all these little rules and things like that above my head. But as I get the info, I take it in and I keep learning.
There's a couple of guys who will be heading to Lehigh Valley now. In Oliver Bonk, Denver Barky, obviously Carson Bjornsson was kind of there at the end of the year. Didn't really play due to some injury stuff. What are you hoping to see from Denver Barky and Oliver Bonk this year?
I think Bonk is going to adjust to just like the pace of the game of playing in the American League. I think both of those guys, but Bonk played on a very good team in London. And when you're able to, go back and break a puck out with ease and play 30 minutes a night and, maybe not even break a sweat, I think that's going to change for him heading into this year where the pace is going to pick up. He's probably not going to play 30 minutes a night, and he's not going to pace himself throughout the course of a game to be like, okay, I'm tired, but I still know I have the third period coming up and I'm going to play half of that period. He's going to have to, commit to playing 100% every shift and not pacing himself throughout the course of the game. And then also just understanding the speed of the game, how to break pucks out. Guys are going to forecheck a lot quicker, harder, finish checks on him. But I do think his brain is high end when it comes to Bonk. And I think he's going to be able to adjust pretty quickly. Once you get him in that environment, I think he'll just feel it and turn the page pretty quick. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to watching him take those next steps. I think it's going to be really exciting, not only for us watching him, but I also think for Flyer fans, for the Phantoms, wherever he plays, I think it's going to be pretty cool to watch him kind of grow as a player and develop.
How do you kind of, obviously he's got the pedigree, right? Like he has his dad, Radek, who played in the NHL too. And do you kind of almost have, and he was a forward, so completely different. But how do you kind of he's been around the game so much, right? Like he's been in NHL rooms since he was probably born. I don't know when he was born versus Radek's career, but like, how do you, you know, does he have a different like personality, a different like vibe with him because he's been around the game so much his whole life in that regard?
Yeah, I can see that when I look at him around the rink, but also at the same time, he's like very nonchalant about it as well. He understands how the locker room works. You're not having to go to Bonker to be like, hey, fix your stall and put your underwear in the basket. Like he's on it. And I think he has that, the head on him that where new guys come in or the young guys come in, they look to Bonk to be like, oh, okay, I see what Bonk did. Where Bonk's looking at other guys probably and picking up from them as well. So he's a sponge in that way, but I think other guys look up to him when they're rookies coming into the locker room here at training camp and stuff. They're looking to Bonk and Hunter McDonald and guys like that of how to conduct and how to work their way around the locker room with the guys, with the trainers and stuff like that.
I mean, Oliver was someone who was very, I don't want to say adamant, that might be too strong of a word, but he was very direct that he wants to make the NHL roster. Like that's his goal. That's his vision for where he will be at, next year or this year, only a couple weeks away.
Yeah.
But how do you deal with guys? Again, it's balance, right? Like, how do you balance guys who are so driven to make the NHL roster, but maybe they're not ready yet? And then how do you handle, I guess it's a lot of mental aspect with that. Like, how do you handle a guy who maybe is like, I want to make the NHL roster. They don't, they go back to, go to Lehigh, let's say in his case. And maybe you want to make sure they're not too down about it, or how do you kind of balance all that?
Well, I think for a player, if they came in already saying, I can't wait to go play in Lehigh, I think that's an issue right there. I do like the mindset. I think all of our players should have the mindset that I'm coming in to make the Flyers. I think that's the only way that you push for a job. I think at the end of the day, you're going to beat someone out of their job to earn your spot. So if you don't go in with that mindset that you're going to beat this guy out or beat these three guys out, you might as well not even come to camp. After that, if the player gets cut, sent down to the American League, it's going over, reviewing not only myself, but with, the NHL coaching staff, Danny, the American League staff, and getting a development plan for them for the course of the season on things that we saw over training camp or the NHL preseason games that now we can start to build that can get them into being an NHL player. Sometimes it's one or two things, sometimes it's three or four. Every player is different when it comes down to those little bits and pieces that they need to work on.
How do you gauge that with training camp and with, let's say, rookie camp also for some of these guys, right? Like rookie camp, training camp, maybe even development camp, preseason games. How do you kind of figure that out, what the development plan is when, let's be honest, like preseason games aren't always like the hardest games, if that makes sense. Like, some guys are like working through the kinks and shaking out the cobwebs, and then other guys are obviously competing for jobs. I mean, but how do you pick and choose like what the plan is when maybe it's not the highest caliber competition?
Well, we'll just for example's sake, if the level isn't that high, but the player is getting beat wide all the time, maybe we need to work on his pivots. Maybe we need to work on his gap of working up the ice more. And that's pace of game, getting up the ice to close the gap quicker, having a better stick, working your open net pivot to close and not get beat wide. And if he can't do it at an NHL preseason game, then how is he going to do it at, once the puck drops? And, then that's something that we need to work on in the American Hockey League throughout the course of the year. So I think when it comes down to that, you find those little things through the course of training camp, through the course of the preseason games or the rookie games, that you can be like, okay, if we got this guy to be a little bit better at this, I think it would help him at the NHL level and he could be an NHL player. So that's kind of the way that we view it when I'm looking at players, you know, at the day-to-day of training camp.
Well, it's interesting you say that about, like, if they're not doing it in a preseason game kind of thing, because it felt like with Helge Grans last year, there was a lot of conversations about how at the AHL level, maybe he wasn't doing X, but he did it at the NHL level kind of thing. So how do you gauge that then, right? Because maybe I remember Tortorella talking about that a lot last year, especially with Grans, that like he maybe wasn't. It almost like he was called up because they needed that right defenseman kind of thing, right? So he's the next man up, but he felt like, I remember Tort saying a few times that he thought he was better at the NHL level than maybe the AHL level, I guess. How do you figure that out and like figure out like what needs to be worked on when like maybe it's the speed, maybe it's the adrenaline getting called up? Like, how do you figure all that out?
I think that is part of it. When you get called up, you watch a player, they take off and you're like, holy smokes, look at this guy. And then as they settled into the games, and then you're like, oh crap, what's going on there? So I think that is a part of it. You got to let them kind of play out that first push, and then once they settle in, you have to start working through some things with the player. I do think the NHL is the easiest league to play in a sense. Passes are on your tape all the time. Players are smart. They don't put you in bad spots where you're going to get hit with the puck, or, you know, you're looking behind you. They still don't pass the puck to you to get your head ripped off. Players go to spots to get open. And then in the American League, you know, maybe 75% of the players do that. And the 25%, they aren't up to that level yet. And maybe you're passing a puck and they can't handle it. Or they give you a pass in your feet and it puts you in a bad spot. So I think there's like a lot of different things that play into that. I do think Grans has taken some great strides during the last couple of years since coming over from LA. And I think it was awesome to see how many guys that went up last year and played games and did well. And, you know, I think it's going to continue to grow here with the prospect pool that we do have coming in over the next couple of years as well. It's going to make for some exciting times around the Flyers.
Carson Bjarnason is also someone, as I mentioned, was in Lehigh a little bit. He didn't get into games. He was dealing with a knee issue, he said at one point. And obviously Parker Gahagan was a monster last year, especially in the playoffs for Lehigh Valley. You know, with Bjarnason, he seems like such a cool, calm, and collected goaltender, which is kind of like a Flyers theme lately, because that's Sam Urson, I would say, is very much cool, calm, and collected. Even Ivan Fedotov is very much in that same kind of very steady like mindset. You know, I mean, do you kind of get that sense with Carson that he's very like kind of cool, calm, and collected, ready to make the jump, the official jump to the pro level? And just how excited are you overall to see him finally reach that point?
Yeah, I think Carson's it's been pretty cool getting to know him, coming from Carberry, Manitoba, where he just told me a Subway just came to town maybe a year ago, and apparently that was the dream job for anybody in Carberry, was to work at Subway because it was new there. So that is Carson. When you talk about simple and the way that his brain operates, that's small town Western Canada to its finest. And just talking to him and the things that he's so amazed about is funny. You know, something so simple and he's like, wow, that is so, like, he can't believe it's actually happening. But he is good at just being in the moment. He plays where his feet are, and, you know, he's never looking too far ahead. He's going about his business, and he knows that he needs to keep working at his game and developing his game. And I don't think there's ever been a rush in his mental space of, you know, looking to get out and I got to go there and I have to do this. He's very sticks to his plan, and I think Kim and Brady, the goalie guys with the Flyers, have done a great job of working with him, keeping him in that mind space as well. And, I think they're going to continue to do that when he's here. Brady's all over him here with the Phantoms all the time. So getting out there, shooting pucks, working at stuff. So I think for Carson, just being a sponge, soaking all that info in and continuing to make the steps that he needs to make.
I know with Matvei Mishkov, you said that you would like WhatsApp, or is it WhatsApp that you would like, talk to him on? I mean, do you do that with Zavragan too, or do you kind of leave that to Kim Dilbaugh and Brady also?
Yeah, I check in with him, just say hi, or how's the week going and stuff like that. His English is getting a little bit better, so that's good. Same with Potov as well. I just check in to say hi, and I think for those guys playing over there, it's not like we fly over every week to go see them or say hi to them. So I think it's just being able to check in with them, show them that we're still here, we're still watching you play, you're still part of the Flyer family. And again, it's just having that line of communication and building those relationships with guys. And, if they come over or whatever happens, they feel comfortable when they see me at the rink. Hey, that's the guy I talked to type thing. So that's what I like to be there for the guys and do whatever I can to help them.
It's good to have that, right? It's good to have someone to talk to. I mean, do guys come to you to talk to you not just about like maybe hockey skills? They come to talk to you like maybe they're down about something. I mean, are you kind of that guy that maybe these development guys like the NCAA players and junior players that they come and lean on you a little bit with that?
Yeah. And there's some stuff I can't talk to them about. Like, I'm not, hey, I didn't go to school for 4 years to discuss that, but here's our guy that you can talk to. But a lot of guys come to me that they're like, oh, I'm gonna buy this car, and I'm like, oh, what kind of car? Or I'll take them out car shopping in Lehigh here, and we drive around, we'll test drive cars. They come here without a car, so right. I'll be like, hey, I'll come pick you up after practice and we'll go around to these dealerships. And I'm not like, hey, you should buy this car, you should buy that car. It's kind of like up to the kid, and we drive around and we test drive cars or trucks, whatever it is. And I wouldn't say I'm a car guy. I like to think I am a car guy, but I got some bad luck with cars. So
oh no.
I think when it comes down to it though, of just like being able to spend that time with them, take them out and do those little things. And then when they buy a car, they send me a picture of it and how, pumped they are. So it's pretty cool when you see that. And, maybe it's something that they talked about earlier on in the year that they're going to buy a BMW, and then they take a picture and they send it to me and they're like, I got it, so I think that it's those little moments that I think cap it off.
It's like a big brother almost.
Yeah.
You are to these guys a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. To like 25 guys. So I think down the road, it'll pay for itself when my little guy's coming up through the hockey ranks, and he's always around the rink, and these guys treat him like they're his little brother. So I think that's where it comes into play is, it's kind of a revolving door of how everything works in the hockey family.
No, it's interesting because it's not just hockey skills. It's not just talking, your positioning on this play was bad or this was perfect. Do that, like the sandwich. I love the sandwich. Like, yeah. Great play here. Work on this a little bit, and then great play here. Like, it's not just that. It's there's a lot more to it than I think people realize with players.
There is, and half the time it's just a text message of, hey, what's up, and they'll write back like, not too much, what's going on with you, and then we have like a little convo, and then it's done.
Yeah,
and hockey's not even brought up. It might be that they're at the cottage. I talked to Barky on the weekend, and he had the Memorial Cup up at his cottage with his family and friends, and they were having a blast, so there wasn't anything to be like, hey, are you in the gym? It's like he's enjoying that time with his family and friends. So it's always nice to just check in and say hi to guys. And I think they really enjoy that part of it.
And for the American viewers, cottage is cabins. So
yeah, sorry.
No, but it's like, like texting them being like, so did you go hit the gym today? Like, you're just checking in to see how's life.
Yeah. Exactly.
There's more to it than just hockey, which is a good thing. I mean, well, with the goalies though, right? Now you have Carson, you have Sam Urson, you have Dan Vladar, you have Ivan Fedotov, Alexei Kolosov. Now you have Carson Bjarnason and, Zavragin also. He's obviously still in Russia. He will be coming potentially over in, I think it's like 2 years, 3 years.
Not even sure.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. I believe it's at least 2. But, the Flyers' history of goaltending has never been great, to say the least. Do you feel more comfortable with where things are now with Carson, with Igor in the system, having these guys? Because you haven't really even drafted a goalie since then. So is there more of a comfort level of where the goaltending is maybe for the first time in a long time?
Yeah, I think for Sam, he got pushed into the starting role, and I'm expecting him to understand how to manage the load, year to year to year. It's the same thing that he did in the American League too. You just got to be patient with him a little bit when it comes to that. I think the NHL is a really tough schedule. Yeah. So they're learning, and then Ivan and Alexei, when they come over, they're adjusting to North America, and the game's played a lot different. The ice is smaller. The angles are a little bit different. So I think there's a learning curve there as well. And again, yeah, I know it sucks on some goals that go in the net, but at the same time, you hope they come back this year and they've taken some strides and they've adapted and they understand the reads and the plays that guys make over here compared to playing in the KHL. And I think that when they're down to it and they're looking at goalies, you have to, give guys a chance to see how they pan out, to see how Zavragin pans out and Carson plays, and give them a chance also to kind of climb the ladder as well and have a crack at the NHL too. So, I think it's going to be really exciting this year going into camp. I think we have a ton of goalies. There's going to be some good competition for ice time, for rosters. And when you have good competition, I think that brings out the best in players, and hopefully our goalies can rise up to that and they can have a good battle.
Do you still talk to those guys? I mean, and Sam's not in it. Sam's an NHL player, right? He's not going back down to the AHL at any point. Do you still maintain relationships with those guys? Do you shoot them a text and say what's up, or is it, once you're NHL, I don't deal with you anymore?
No. I always talk to those guys too, especially the guys that I coached here with the Phantoms, with Brink and Yorkie and Tyson, Zamula, Urson. All those guys that I've always had that relationship with from the time here with the Phantoms. So for myself, it's cool to see them play here, and now the careers that they're having with the Flyers, and I'm still get messages from them time to time, or a pitcher, they're out fishing or doing whatever. And so it's pretty cool that they even just thought, I got to send this to Riles. He's going to love this photo, so it's always good just to have that line of communication with these guys.
Well, let's talk defense as a whole. How do you view the pipeline right now for the Flyers in terms of the defensemen? We didn't even talk about Spencer Gill, who's obviously, I think, rising very rapidly for the Flyers. How do you see the defense as a whole?
I think we're in a great spot. Maybe the one side that we're lacking at, I guess, prospect pool will be the left side, but you can always find some left shooting D-man. We're loaded up on the right side, with Bonk and Gill and Moline and Amico, so we have a lot coming in there. But I do think the guys that we do have with the Zamula and York and Drysdale, they're very young, and I don't think a lot of people realize how young they are. And when you look at a player, the prime, when they get into their prime, is 27, 28, and they're just 22, 23, and they have a lot of growth still ahead of them. And for me, I'm excited to see all these young guys where they're at in 5 years, and how good they are going to be. And I think they know it too. And each year they're slowly getting better and better and still learning. So I think there's a lot when it comes down to it. I think our decore's looking good. I think our prospect pool's good. And we're just going to continue to keep bringing these guys up and giving them a chance and keep developing them and working with them.
we didn't even talk about Jack Berglund. He's another center kind of guy. I mean, there's obviously centers always been talked about with the Flyers and the need for centers and to develop guys more down the middle. You have Luchanko, you have Jack Berglund, who's actually playing very well at World Junior Summer Showcase for Sweden. You know, Jack Nesbitt is a center. Jack Murtaugh, love all the Jacks, by the way. Jack Murtaugh is he can play center. Matthew Gard is a center. Heikki Rahonen is. I mean, do you feel better about the center position for the Flyers moving forward? I know they're not going to step into the NHL tomorrow, except for maybe Luchanko. But do you feel maybe the ship's riding a little bit for the center role?
Yeah. I think along with that, with all those guys, we've had a lot of size. And I think having that bigger centerman, in those battles in the D zone and being able to break pucks out and in the offensive zone, play with a guy on your back and having that size and that strength does well in that position. But I think all those guys you mentioned, it's probably 2, 3, 4 years down the road. And you never know what can happen to a player year to year and who takes steps forward, who takes steps back. And, so I think we have a lot of options and not everybody's going to turn pro at the same time.
Right.
Maybe one guy does a couple years more at college than the other guy, and they all kind of come in different layers. And, so I think in the future of what, Danny and Brent and Alan and Jonesy are building, I think when you look at the prospect pool, the cupboard's very full. It's going to continue to grow. And, I think that's what keeps pushing guys to continue to get better is, you're getting pushed from the bottom. As soon as a new draft class is put into that cupboard, guys are like, oh man, these guys are on my tail. They're on my tail. And it's pushing everybody to just get that much better and keep working.
I know you development guys don't like to rank players because, they're all your kids kind of thing. But, we've talked a little bit about Alex Bump and for the Inquirer, we have projected him to make the roster for the Flyers. As I said, I watched Alex at Frozen Four and was blown away by what he did there. Is there anyone else in the prospect pool though that you're like, maybe they could break the roster next year? Maybe Oliver Bonk. I mean, is there someone else besides Alex Bump who you think could break the roster next year? Or not next year, literally in like 2 months.
I think Gurbankin has a chance. He's his high-end hockey IQ again. He's smart. I think he plays pretty well since we got him in that Toronto trade. He definitely helped us with the Phantoms down the stretch there and then into the playoffs. I really do think he has a good shot. Again, it's, the work that he did in the summertime and when he comes back here, where is he at from a conditioning standpoint and then getting onto the ice and having a good camp and playing well and producing and all that type of stuff. There's a lot that goes into it, but I think that's another guy along with Bump that I think has a chance of cracking the roster.
And potentially maybe like Emil Andre's not a prospect anymore, technically. Maybe a Grans could crack the lineup too. He looked pretty good last year when he did get that call up, although maybe it was a little of the adrenaline boost getting the call up. But is there anyone who Flyer fans should really keep an eye on in Lehigh or at the college level or juniors? Obviously, because like Jack Nesbitt will go back to juniors. Like, is there anyone that you're like, okay, this is kind of like your Alex Bump, right? The guy who you've been on the train for a while now. Is there someone else that maybe fans should keep an eye on?
Yeah, I think everybody's going to keep an eye on Porter because being 6th overall, I think that's kind of where the eyes go to. I do think a guy like Jack Nesbitt is someone that Flyer fans can continue to watch. I also think Noah Powell is another guy going back to college again at ASU. He's done a lot of work in the summertime. He's excited about the finishing to the season that he had with Oshawa, losing in the OHL final. He played way more games last year. I think he got better as the year went on, but I think that's another guy that Flyer fans should watch as well. I think there's a lot of potential there. little bit of work and a little bit of grind to his game. And I think once he gets into the lineup, I think he's going to bring a lot that the Flyer fans are going to like.
Yeah, he looked good at development camp too. I think he ran over a bump at one point. He looked good, and yes, he's going to Arizona State, and I do believe they play Penn State at Penn State very early in the NCAA season. So that's obviously close to us in Philly. Riley, I really appreciate you taking the time during your summer, relaxation time. But I guess always working, always grinding. So I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us on the second edition, episode number 2 of the Flyers edition of Inquirer Live at Gameday Central. So thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks for having me.